former State Senator Jeannemarie Davis. She is a candidate, one of 7, for the Republican nomination for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. That nomination will be settled in a May 18th Republican convention in Richmond. Senator Davis, great to have you with us.
Thanks. It's great to be with you as always.
We always appreciate your coming on, and we know that you enjoy being on the Straight Talk Express, because if there's one thing we can expect from Jeannemarie Davis, it's straight talk. So let's get right to the politics of this thing. I'm going to go to the General Assembly, Senator Davis, where the other day the Republicans in the Senate passed a new redistricting bill. They did it at the 11th hour. They didn't give the Democrats a heads up on it. Dick Saslaw went bananas, pulled a temper tantrum. Pete Snyder, one of your opponents, called him out for that in a press release. We just had the incumbent lieutenant governor on, Bill Bowling. He blasted it. He said it made no sense and that it was divisive. Bowling also said that if it was a 2020 tie, he would have voted it down. Now, what was interesting is it was 2019, so we have to assume that Senate Majority Leader Tommy Norment from the Peninsula, orchestrated the timing of it where he knew one of the Democratic senators would be out. Where does Jeannemarie Davis stand on this whole mess?
First I want to point out that the redistricting plan, the way the Democrats did it, was a horribly gerrymandered plan. It was a sham. We have no Republican state senators in Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax, or Prince William. We have one who lives in Loudoun. When you look at that original plan, it was so gerrymandered that they took a Senate seat from Arlington and they stretched it from Arlington through McLean, through Great Falls, to Reston, through Herndon, through Loudoun. Now, one of the requirements in our code is that a district has to have a community of interest. And I can tell you right now, there was no community of interest between Arlington and Loudoun or anything in between. This plan creates 40 contiguous Senate districts that all have communities of interest. It creates a new majority-minority district, a 6th black district, which is more representative of the percentage of blacks population-wise in Virginia. That percentage is now going to be reflected in the state Senate. And it creates competitive districts up here so that they didn't make any of them, definitely Republican, but they made them competitive, and I think people want competitive districts. I think you hear a lot of people complaining that everyone's far left or everyone's far right. Why don't we have competitive districts so that everyone can take a look at these candidates? So I think that the plan that the Republican Senate just put together creates contiguous districts with community of interest. It creates a 6th black district, more representative of the black population in Virginia, and it doesn't gerrymander the way the Democrats did. And I'll tell you what, I was in the state Senate, and the Democrats give as good as they get. When they had the majority, and Bill Mims, for instance, from Loudoun County, was elected to the Senate from the House. He's now a Supreme Court justice. They seated him in the far corner of the Democrat side of the chamber and refused to allow him to sit with his fellow Republicans. That's the kind of stuff, unfortunately, that takes place. And so the fact that they're, expressing concern over all of this is really interesting, considering that they put Republicans in the same district in their redistricting 2 years ago. We had one that had to move in order to run in a completely different district. So, this sort of thing happens in redistricting. Is a very political process. But honestly, I think the Republicans did a much better job of redistricting, more in conformity with what the law requires, more in conformity with the percentage of the black population in Virginia. I think they did a much better and a fairer job than the Democrats did.
Senator Davis, if you were lieutenant governor and this was indeed a 2020 vote, would you have voted to enact it? Yes or no?
I will say right here that I would always vote with the Republicans, always.
So you would have voted to enact it. Well, then let me ask you this. If it's such a great piece of redistricting legislation, why was it done in the dead of night where Democrats had a few hours to react to it? The governor didn't know. The lieutenant governor didn't know. No one knew. And Tommy Norment slipped it in when he knew one of the Democrats was out of town and that he would win 20-19. He also knew that the sitting lieutenant governor would have voted no. If it was that great of a piece of legislation, why all the late night politics?
Well, it's a political process. B, I think that he had to do it at a time when he knew a Democrat wasn't there. And in all fairness, I'll say this. I know Tommy Norment would never have done it if there was one Democrat missing because that person was sick and couldn't make it that day. Senator Marsh was elected to represent his district every single day during the General Assembly's session, and he chose to be elsewhere. That was his choice. Instead of being in his seat representing the people that elected him, he chose to be elsewhere. And I think that's fair. Had he been homesick or he had a death in his family or something like that, that would not have been fair. But he chose not to be there. Secondly, I'm disappointed that the lieutenant governor, he's clearly very unhappy about the outcome of the circumstances of nomination. He made a choice not to run. I think that in his press releases and everything he is saying, he is trying very hard to depict himself as an independent. And so I think that what he has to say about this and the fact that he would have refused to have voted with the Republicans on this, what that says to me is that he's choosing to create an independent persona should he choose to run as an independent statewide.
Okay, so what you're saying, if I understand it, Senator Davis, is that Bill Bowling's public opposition to this is based on the fact that he is seriously considering an independent bid for governor, so it kind of would be consistent with taking that mantle, right?
It appears to me to have some consistency. In fairness, I haven't talked with him about it, so I can't tell you what was going through his mind, but it has an appearance of consistency in the fact that he has announced that he's considering an independent run for governor, yes.
That is definitely legitimate conjecture, no doubt. Senator, I want to stay with politics for a minute. There's a lot of conservatives that have been contacting me. We have you on your show a lot. I did a column on the race, kind of a parody the other day. I put you in the top 3. I said if it was a horse race, you'd be in my trifecta box.
He also called me a mare instead of a filly, and honestly, I'm not over that yet.
I told you, John, that was going to come back to bite you.
I know. Well, there's a lot of famous mares out there, but
thanks. I've been put out to pasture with that one, but thank you.
John, you're going to have to offer up a sugar cube or an apple or something here.
There you go.
I'm going to have to do something, and maybe any chance that I've got of my wife calling me a cult is probably over now. Anyway, long as she doesn't refer to me as the gelding, I guess I'm still okay. When that starts to happen, we know we're in big trouble. But, I've got a lot of conservatives telling me, Jeannemarie Davis can't win. She has no shot. I had one activist call me and said, your column was a laughable. Jeannemarie Davis is going to finish last behind E.W. Jackson. I don't happen to agree with that. But let me ask you this. When the disclosures came out, a lot of people expected you to raise a whole lot more money. There was a time where you raised tons, and so did your husband, former Congressman Tom Davis. So kind of what happened is a two-part question. What happened to the Davis money machine, number one? Number two is, how do you win this race?
Well, as far as the money machine goes, many of the others who posted earnings had been running for 6 months, raising money for 6 months. I'd been raising money for 2. So that's a third. If you multiply my amount by 3, that puts me at $450,000. And I'll just say to people, just wait and see what I've got in the next report. Secondly, I like to look at the Virtucon poll that we were engaging in for at least a month. It may even have been 5 or 6 weeks, and I won that poll. And I won that poll by more than 136 votes over the second place person, several hundred votes over the third place person, and 700 votes over the 4 people that came before, who are the conservatives' favorites. And I think that speaks volumes to the organization that my campaign has. I think that poll shows more about organization than it does about anything else. And we've got momentum. We're well organized. I have field staff all over this state. We are filing delegates every single day. I think that people are going to be very surprised when they see how well we show at the convention. I talk everywhere I go. I talk about the Republican ethnic leaders. Every one of them are with me across this Commonwealth. They're filing delegates. And I think that we will be bringing, my goal is to bring hundreds of ethnic delegates to the convention just because that helps us build the party and it helps us build back the relationship with the Asians, the Hispanics, and all of our other ethnic groups because we can't win statewide unless we win the ethnics in Northern Virginia. You've got to have 46% of the vote or better in Northern Virginia in order to win statewide. I am the only candidate that has won in a Democrat district, even though I have a 100% pro-life voting record 4 times. I am the only one candidate who is running, who's electable in Fairfax, and who can do so much better in Prince William and Loudoun than we've done in this past election. And electability means a lot to people. As I'm traveling around the Commonwealth, I'm talking about that. They know I'm the only one that can bring women vote and ethnic vote, enough of them in Northern Virginia, to overcome the losses that we saw this past November. They know I'm the only candidate that's got that broad range of experience, both in the legislative branch, the executive branch, which the lieutenant governor rests in, and with that federal state experience that I have running the governor's Washington office for 3 years. So as Republicans are hearing my message around the Commonwealth, understanding that the difference between me and the others is this broad range of experience that has made me prepared to be lieutenant governor, and the fact that I am the one that is electable in Northern Virginia by the margin we need to win, that message is resonating, and I have Republicans that are coming on board, not just establishment Republicans. I'm picking up Tea Party Republicans all across this Commonwealth. So I think that I'm being underestimated, which is, generally speaking, how it always is for me when I run. I shocked everyone when I took that House seat back from the Democrats back in 1997. I surprised everyone when I picked up that Democrat state Senate seat in 2003, and I'm going to surprise everyone at this convention.
Okay, so it sounds like you're going to be the shock and awe candidate. Jeannemarie Davis, former state senator. She's a candidate for the Republican nomination for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. We're on the John Fredericks show. As long as you're putting rumors to bed, let's go with one other one, Senator Davis. I've got rumors flying around the internet that you're trying to arrange a New York City fundraiser.
Oh, that's hogwash.
With Michael Bloomberg. Let me finish my question.
Gotcha.
The last time you were on my show, you kind of distanced yourself from Bloomy with the guns and with the you can't have soft drinks over 32 ounces or whatever else he's got going on up there. Will you be willing to make a commitment right here, right now on our show that you are not going to raise any money from Mayor Bloomberg and that you're willing to denounce his gun-grabbing and nanny state policies?
I am absolutely willing to announce that I'm not going to New York or having any money come down from New York. Unlike a couple of my other opponents whose most of their money has been raised from out of state, I think it's real important to have those that are citizens who can vote, that are good Virginians, to be the ones that participate. And not that I haven't gotten 1 or 2 checks from out of state, but certainly almost all my money is in state, and I'm very proud of that. I have stated over and over again that I think everyone should have a background check before they're allowed to buy a gun, so we can make sure that those who've been educated as mentally ill and institutionalized and those who are convicted felons will not and cannot buy a gun in Virginia, which is the law. Other than that, I don't agree with Mayor Bloomberg on any of the other gun control measures. The only thing that we agree on are background checks. And honestly, CBS just did a poll recently of self-identified Republicans, and 90% of Republicans in that poll stated they think that background checks are important. So I know that I'm in good company with 90% of my fellow Republicans. I think that's an important way to make sure that we don't allow those that shouldn't have guns to have them. But I am not in favor of any more restrictive gun control measures.
And State Senator Davis, so you agree you can carry both a 32 and a 32-ouncer against Mayor Bloomberg's wishes?
Yes, and if you want a 64-ouncer, that's up to you.
There you go.
Personally, I would feel hypoglycemic if I did that, but, if you want to do it, do it.
Well, Senator Davis, always a pleasure to have you on. The next time we get you on, in a couple of weeks, we're going to ask you about your in-depth transportation plan.
Terrific.
Lieutenant Governor candidate Pete Snyder came out with one the other day that basically called for no new taxes and cutting spending by 10%, putting that towards transportation. We're going to get your reaction to that. We're out of time. The time goes so fast when you're on.
It does. I know. It's such a good time. Well, I look forward to being back with you again soon. Thanks so much.
We will definitely have you on. We thank you again, Senator Davis, for being so accessible and for answering our questions in such a forthright and candid manner. And we're going to take you at face value, basically, that it's the shock and awe campaign. Thank you so much.
There you go. Thanks a lot, John. Thanks to both of you.